There were lots of people involved in this big cover-up. None of them were punished. None of them got a slap on the wrist. Despite my every effort to get this detective at least reprimanded, didn't happen. Police didn't have a 6-month statute of limitations. And if you don't find out about it for 12 years, well, that's too bad. So let me tell you what happened then. On October 24th, the year 2000, which was the 12th anniversary of my daughter's death, that's how I found out about this man that was confessing. I saw Ronnie Earl, the district attorney, on television, and that's the first I'd ever heard of it. Did not have a clue up until I saw that man on television saying these 2 young men were innocent, or were probably innocent. That another man had been confessing for 4 years. Can you imagine my shock? I thought, oh no, they're not letting those little bastards get away with this. There ain't no way, they ain't getting out of there. I don't care what this guy says, he's lying. Mm-hmm. He wasn't. So I was pretty shocked. When I got myself together, I called the district attorney's office. By then, my shock is turning to some hot anger. And I got Rosemary Lindbergh on the phone, and she's an assistant district attorney, and she said some of the most ludicrous things to me. I just, I finally told her, do not speak to me like I'm a child. And I'm not an idiot. When I asked her what was going on, she said, well, Mrs. Popp, you're aware. And I said, I'm not aware of a damn thing. Because I wasn't aware of anything. And she said, nobody notified you? And I said, you know very well. Nobody notified me. Well, we thought your son-in-law would. And I said, well, you know what? That was your job. You're supposed to do that. So I began to ask her questions about Christopher and Richard. And she informed me that in 1998, they did in fact recover the murder weapon, my daughter's keys, and the bank bag from the Pizza Hut at this man's parents' home where he told them it would be. He took a voluntary DNA test that proved he sexually assaulted my daughter. And I said she said, but I don't want you to jump to conclusions now. She said, we're trying to find a link between these guys. She said, we think the 3 of these guys did this together. And I said, well, how long have you been looking for this link? And she said, 4 years. I said, well, you're not likely to find it then, are you? And then I asked her about the DNA testing. And she told me that this man's DNA matched. And I asked her if Richard and Chris's DNA were there too. And she said, well, what we think is that this man raped her last. And his DNA is masking theirs. Now, this is the very words that woman said to me, which is when I told her, do not talk to me like I'm a child or an idiot. I said, if you've got 3 DNAs, you've got 3 DNAs. I don't care who went first, who went last, or who did what. They're still there. At which point, she became very defensive, and she was almost as angry as I was. I guess she was angry because I wasn't as stupid as she'd counted on. And when I got through talking to her, I certainly wasn't satisfied with what I'd just been told, and I was starting to have doubts. I was starting to have real doubts. So I called the University of Wisconsin Innocence Project, and I left a message for them saying that I was Nancy's mother, that I wanted to know what was going on and for them to call me. Well, they did, very hesitantly, They told me later that they thought I was just going to go ballistic on them, that I was just really going to let them have it. And so 2 of them called on a conference phone, and John Prey and Keith Finley are wonderful people. The professors that and the students that worked on Chris and Richard's case were just wonderful. And they spoke to me on the phone for 2 hours. They gave me detailed information on everything they had found on the case. They FedExed overnight the medical examiner's amended report that he amended after 12 years. They sent me the letters of confession this man had written and numerous other documents proving the innocence of these 2 young men. So what we had here was a detective that made up a horrible story out of his sick mind to match his crime scene because he couldn't figure out anything else. He couldn't figure out the truth. And then you've got a scared young man that backs up his story. And then you've got one that's such a smart aleck, nobody believes anything he says. And you've got a medical examiner that lied through his teeth. You know why he lied through his teeth? Because that detective was standing right there watching my daughter's autopsy, taking her last shred of dignity away from her. And when the medical examiner saw minute, tiny tears in the anal area, I can hear it now. I don't know this to be a fact, but I can hear it. The detective said, "Oh, she's been sodomized." And he said, "Could be." So that's what he put in his report. That she'd been sodomized, that she'd been raped 8 times. Now how they came up with the count, I don't know. But in 1988, I was so distraught and irrational, I could have cared less how they came up with that number. Don't care. Or didn't care. I care very much now. He said that the real killer said that he didn't tie Nancy's hands up with her bra. He handcuffed her with a pair of metal handcuffs. And this medical examiner could not tell the difference between marks a metal handcuffs and a cloth bra would make. What's wrong with that? He is now the chief medical examiner for Travis County. Is that scary? And after 12 years, when it was fixed to hit the fan, he amended his report to say that the damage to the anal area that he saw was caused by a rectal thermometer at the hospital. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think I could tell the difference in those type of injuries. So as you can see, we had a whole conspiracy going here against these 2 young men. And what they did, not just incarcerating these innocent men for 12 years, but allowed the real killer to rape and rob 2 other women before he was caught, and almost completely destroyed my life. Right after my daughter died, I was suicidal. And I didn't really want to die, but I wanted to be with her so bad. I wanted to be with her so bad. And I had an older sister who slapped me out of that kind of thinking. And then I met this wonderful man a year after my daughter died, and he saved me from myself. He was definitely God sent, and he's been saving me ever since. Much to his surprise at some of the things I do, and he just stands right behind me and backs me up, and no matter what kind of trouble I get myself into, he's always there. And on days like today, on Nancy's birthday, he always knows, and he's always right there. And he has rocked me to sleep many times from me screaming, waking up from the nightmare that I had repeatedly about the things the detective said had happened to my daughter for 12 years.